It's Railbirds, presented by MyRacehorse. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Railbirds podcast, the first of its kind from MyRacehorse. I'm Christina Blacker from FanDuel TV. Really excited to be kicking off this new series with you. I'm joined by Hannah Bloom, the social marketing manager for MyRacehorse, and this is a project that we've been talking about for quite a while with Molly McGill as well, and just looking forward to introducing a new forum to get you involved and to bring you even closer to the game. Hannah, tell us where you are and how excited you are as we begin this podcast.
Hello, Christina. I know I'm very excited. This is kind of a long time coming. You know, I'm a huge fan of podcasts myself, so this is something very exciting. I love to listen while I'm working, while I'm in the car. I'm based in Los Angeles. I'm actually about 8 minutes from Santa Anita Racetrack, so Los Angeles local here. And yeah, it's a busy season, Derby season, but we're so excited to welcome in our, first owner guest today, and as well as Johnny Velasquez as we look to Derby season.
Yeah, so a little bit about the format for everybody joining us today, and whether you're listening to this in its first kind of broadcast or on down the line, what our plan is with the Railbirds podcast is to bring on an owner and to get to know the owners a little bit more, to get to know their story, and then to also bring on a very special horse racing guest and to bring everybody together. So you get that conversation between the owner, between the racing personality, and as Hannah touched on, Johnny Velasquez is going to be our first guest. So that's definitely little trivia point to maybe save for the future, and just to look forward to hearing about his exciting times ahead with the Kentucky Derby approaching. We want to reflect on his win on Authentic, of course, as that was such a pivotal moment in the history for MyRacehorse. So without any further ado, let's introduce our first guest. Our owner, Winford Tyler Larue, is joining us on the line as well. And Winford, I'm very jealous because I understand you live in a very beautiful place. Tell us about yourself.
I do. I live in Hawaii. I'm on the island of Kauai. I've been here on Kauai 6 or 7 years now. Before that, lived on Oahu for 2 years. Before that, I grew up in Pennsylvania, just outside Pittsburgh.
Very
awesome.
Cool.
Tell us a little bit more just about what got you into horse racing.
Well, when I was growing up in Pittsburgh, I used to do a lot of farming, doing like hay and stuff like that. And what really got me started was we were doing deliveries to the Meadowlands racetrack in Casino outside of Pittsburgh, and going there and dropping off hay for the horses and kind of seeing them run out there. That kind of sparked my interest. And then, more so started watching on TV after that. And I just got hooked. It's not a drug, but it's a drug in a way.
I love that. Well, Winford, great to hear your voice. I know it's been about a year because I remember seeing you and meeting you at our last year's Santa Anita Derby event.
Yep.
You even did an interview for us on TVG, so that's been great. As far as getting involved with MyRacehorse, who was your actual first, piece of ownership with us? If you could tell us a little bit about that.
I believe it was the Philly 4.
The good old Philly 4.
Yep.
Okay, that was a while ago, so you've been with us a long time.
Yep. Yeah, it was a couple years ago, so I've been here for a while now.
And Winford, do you have any big moments, whether it was through ownership or just horses, that you've really been a fan of, or any kind of highlights in particular as far as the game goes?
Oh, I would say, just like a lot of other people, definitely Authentic. Obviously I didn't get to attend that year. Had COVID and everything else, but I can't complain because I was in Hawaii at the time. But that was definitely, getting to sit there with my family and watch it on TV. It's like, yeah, I have that horse, I own part of that horse, he's running in the Derby. And then to sit there and my jaw be on the floor afterwards with him winning, it was kind of surreal.
I think that was
any of those highlight videos too myself. Sorry, Hannah, go ahead.
No, you're fine. I think I'm just going to echo what Winford is saying. It's kind of all of us. There's a great video even of me and Molly, who I work with at MyRacehorse. And, my jaw is literally open and she's grabbing me, kind of shaking me, because it was as if I couldn't comprehend that this was happening. But what an exciting day then too for you to get to talk to Johnny V today.
Absolutely.
So I'll let Christina kind of say more to that before we bring him in.
Yeah, speaking of, great way to bring in Hall of Famer Johnny Velasquez, a man that really needs no introduction, certainly to the MyRacehorse ownership group and to the fans of MyRacehorse, for bringing home the real pivotal moment, not only in racing for this group, for this ownership group, but just for, I think, the profile of owning horses in general going forward. So the Hall of Famer, the Eclipse Award winner, jockey Johnny Velasquez joins us now. He's at Keeneland in the Jocks Room. So Johnny, thanks so much for taking some time to join us today.
Thank you guys for having me. Hopefully you guys can hear me because I'm in the jockey's room, so I don't know if you have a really good connection.
We got you good so far in here. Can we just go back to Authentic? Can you share a little bit about your memories of that day? Of course, it was a different type of derby with COVID. Winford kind of alluded to that, but what do you remember about that day?
Oh, I remember everything, really. I mean, the excitement's still there. We did miss, obviously, the fans and everybody there, but, you know, what we do for a living, just riding horses and riding good horses, like Authentic, was as a racehorse. And I hope he does the same thing as a stud now. But anyway, one of the things that you dream of, you know, picking up this horse going to the Derby, and I think a lot of people were saying that he might not go the distance, and he proved everybody wrong, obviously. And the way he ran and the way he allowed me to ride him that day, it was really, really rewarding because I mean there was a lot of speed in the race. Talking to Bob, and I mean, I had a good position on the outside. I had a couple of speeds in the inside, so I wanted to see what they were going to do, and pass the wire for the first time. And then I made my decision that they were kind of taken back a little bit. And by the time we got to the first turn, we got to the lead. And after that, you know, he was pretty easy. You know, waited for the competition, and when the horse to be, I'm not going to even say the name, but got right next to me on the quarter pole, and it looks like, you know, watching the replay that he thought he had us, you know, and I got, you know, to left-handed to you know, to Authentic, and he responded right away, and every time I asked him for a little more, he gave me more and more, and obviously, you know, the results of it. So the experience just to have that, and to win the race, and for everything that I asked him to do, he went for more. You can't ask for any more than what the horse was giving you.
I love hearing the recap a bit because it's funny because it was just a few years ago, but it also feels like yesterday. So Johnny, it's really exciting to hear your recap of it. As we kind of talk about the theme of Derby, let's talk about your first Derby win back in 2011 with Animal Kingdom. That's every jockey's kind of big goal, I would say, right? Winning the Kentucky Derby. What was that like, your first Kentucky Derby win?
And amazing. It's just no words to describe. It's amazing. I mean, for me at that point in my career, you know, I already had so much success, and I had ridden many derbies, and not winning it seems like it was missing something, though. You know, and I was supposed to ride Uncle Mode. He was scratched, and then I picked up Animal Kingdom last minute. I was supposed to stay before actually. The Derby. Um, And I heard a lot of him though. You know, I heard, you know, I watched this horse run a few times here and there, you know, against him and everything. But and then he worked really well for the week before the Derby. And then when I picked him up, I mean, it was exciting. Not only, you know, to be back in the race, but, you know, to have a horse that had a chance. And to a good friend of mine, a friend of mine, Grant Motion. And just happened to we have dinner the night before, and we were excited to have it, you know, to be part of it, and um, incredible, you know, so everything worked out the way we thought. You know, we know he was a little slow from the gate, was a lot of speed in the race. All I wanted to do is come out running and try to get some sort of position in the middle of the group that he didn't have to come to way far back, that was kind of his style. Um, and everything I ask again, you know, that's probably a dream come true as well, just because the horse coming from grass and poly track, and for him to handle the dirt the way he handled it that day was incredible. And everything I asked him for, he got in a tight position in the first turn, he got a tight position in the 3/8 pole, and he got the position that I wanted to do. And then finally in the quarter pole, I pulled him out, and he threw the ears up. And I was like, no, that can't be it. This horse cannot be this fresh, you know, right now. You know, the quarter pole, and I'm like fifth, you know, and all of a sudden I asked him to do something at 3/16 pole, and he started cutting to the horses, and, you know, in the lead. And by the 8 pole, he passed those horses. My first thing in my head when I passed the wire, Jesus, I hope I didn't battle anybody. That was the thing, first thing that came to my head. My first derby. I hope I didn't, making those move and pushing my weight through. Hope I didn't bow anybody. So it was one of those really good feeling and scary feeling at the same time. I won the derby, damn it, and I don't know if I bow anybody. So it was one of those things, really exciting and nervousness that a little confusing, basically, the way everything worked out. But once I pulled up and I didn't see it was no inquiry or anything like that, it kind of threw relaxed. And it's like I said to myself, well, finally, well, at least we got one, though. So uh, what experience you have, and to have everybody there, have family and friends, everybody was definitely very special.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something there, Johnny, that was interesting too, talking about a horse that, came from synthetic, came from turf. I think Animal Kingdom's win in the Kentucky Derby really changed the way people start to approach their handicapping when it comes to this race, and the way that you can campaign a horse to get to the race, and giving validation to horses that are prepping on different surfaces, and opening it up to an international group of horses. We have these horses from Japan coming this year. I mean, Dermoso Tagake looks pretty tough. And I think your win and Animal Kingdom's victory was one of those moments that kind of changed what we think about in terms of expecting, on paper at least, what you would have from a Derby winner.
No, exactly. I mean, imagine him. I don't believe he actually ran in the Derby before he came to the Derby, though. He was running in the grass in the valley track. So, and he comes to the Derby and wins the Derby. And so obviously after that, he run back in the dirt, run really well. And the Preakness just beat. But yeah, I mean, it's like you said, it's like it opens the door for all the preps for the Derby, for whatever surface it may be. You can come to the Derby and give it a shot.
So Winford is with us as well, one of our owners, and he was an owner of Authentic. So, of course, he was very excited to see you come home a winner in 2020. And this was kind of the idea behind this podcast, was to bring the fans together with the legends of the game. So, Winford, I'll toss it to you next. Any questions that you have for Johnny Velasquez?
Yeah, there was a lot of talk going into the Derby, obviously, with Authentic, like you touched on with, could he actually go the full Derby distance? What was your thoughts going into the Derby, getting ready to go into the gate, stuff like that with him? Like, was there any, hopefully he can save enough in the tank for the home stretch? Was there any of that, or were you just, you had confidence the whole time?
Yeah, that's always in your back of your head, though. And in talking to Bob, he gave me a lot of confidence in the horse, and he kept telling me, "You bring me to the 8 pole. You bring me to the 8 pole." No, the opposite. I'm going to bring you to the 8 pole. From the 8 pole to the wire, you have to carry this horse. So it was sort of a little bit pressure, but not a lot. First time riding him, I watched his runs. I thought he definitely had a good chance. The position that we had, it was a little awkward, but on the other hand, after doing my homework and watching all the speed, all that stuff, I thought it was going to be a benefit to us, so I could watch who wanted to go to the lead, who didn't want to go to the lead, and all those things, just kind of go in my head and through my homework, and just happened to, Bob allowed me to do what I wanted to do, and not just Bob, but the horse allowed me to do what I wanted to do. And the first part of the race, that first quarter of a mile, 3/8 of a mile, if you will, to get a comfortable pace, not this really crazy pace going to the first turn. So I think that was the most important thing right there. That I had that back in my head, that if I using too much the first part, I might not have anything, to fight from the 8 pole to the wire. So if I can get a nice quarter of a mile, the first part of the race, I think we'll have plenty to fight, and that's the way it worked out. One of the things that you plan over and over and over, and sometimes doesn't work out. It just happened to work out with him, and the post position helped me to do what I wanted to do the first part of the race, and I think that's what did the difference. So I mean, it was a nice group of horses in the race, and then he come back, obviously proved it in the Breeders' Cup as well. So yeah, so once he did it once, he can do it again.
I love to hear all these recaps. It's kind of like I'm fangirling a bit myself, just like anyone else would. So to follow along with the questions of this podcast, as Christina mentioned, we do want this to feel very owner-centric, and they're part of this as well. So we did have a lot of questions sent in for you, Johnny. And we have one from an owner, Tiffany Lins. She asked, is there a horse, past or present, that you wish you could ride? This doesn't have to be Derby themed for the answer, Johnny. So I'll let you take that away.
I tell you what, one horse that I in the past that I really was eyeing on. I never rode him. It was Cigardo, and I probably could have the chance when he ran in New York with 110 pounds. And actually, a jury ended up riding him and picking him up on the last minute. I wasn't even there in New York at the time. He ended up winning what is called the Naira Mile, I think now. And then after that, he became what Cigardo is. So one of those horses that you were eyeing and never had a chance to ride.
We have another one for you, Johnny, from an owner. This comes from Catherine Carlson, and she says, given the unique nature of the Kentucky Derby with a 20-horse field, new distance for many of them, what strategy do you think works best in general for a horse to have a shot to hit the board? No matter what that horse's preferred running style is, do you think there's any particular strategy as a jockey that you think is best?
The Derby is probably the most difficult race to ride, though, and the horses have to handle everything from the crowd to, the post positions. How do you break out of there? And also, so, I think there is not one strategy, to win the race. Actually, it's just actually the horse allowing you to do what is possible to do to get a good position without overusing it or getting in trouble and all that stuff. And then hopefully you have something, to finish with. That's probably I think the more open-minded, if you will, kind of strategy, if you will, because you can't just use one. Basically, you got to do the homework in the race. You got to do, there's sometimes a lot of speed in the race that the horses that doesn't really last anyway. So you don't want to be in that duel with horses that not going to be helping you, and then you don't want to be too far back because a lot of horses that really stop early in the race. You don't want to be behind them and you get in trouble. So it's a lot of things, a lot of luck in the race, a lot of knowing the horses, sorting the opposite, your position, basically, your competition, as you said. So you do a lot of anticipation and try to stay out of trouble, basically,
That definitely makes sense. There's a lot of moving parts when it comes to the Derby, I'm sure. And we have another owner question. This one is from Marco Self, and I really loved this question. Do horses have genuine feelings towards a jockey on a personal level? If so, does it make a difference if the horses don't like you when it comes down to the race itself? Do you have to ride differently to get the best out of them to have a chance to win? So kind of a triple threat of a question, but I definitely love that do horses have a genuine feelings question first.
I think that definitely the horses have some sort of general feeling. It's just no doubt, though. Our job is as a jockey, and for me that I get to ride different horses and horses that I've never seen before. Is that the first introduction with the horse that you get a little bit of their personalities, what the trainer's telling you, and how they like, and stuff like that. Now it's your job to get along with that horse as soon as you touch the horse, as soon as you get on the horse, and trying to see how you can get along. And yes, it's for sure you're going to have some horses that are not going to like you. You try your best, to get along with the horse, and you try to what's right for the horse. Try to get along with the horses. Some of them they don't have very very much patience, and for the most part they do. You get along with almost every horse, but you're always going to find a horse that you can't really get along. But my job is try to do my best to get along with the horses, definitely.
I have two more follow-up questions for you that kind of got my mind rolling, Johnny. One is, what is a horse that you got along the best, and what is one that you didn't get along with at all?
It's funny because the ones that you don't get along at all, you forget about those horses very quickly. And the rest of them that you ride, that you get along, those are the ones that you, okay, so I want to ride these horses back, and all that stuff. So, why it's done was one of the probably watching the horse, and just because obviously one of my favorite horses to ride, and he was not very easy to ride. It was kind of quite difficult to ride, actually. And he was one of the horses that you really have to get along with him. Otherwise, he was going to take you for a ride. So at first, when I got on him, and I see a lot of his races, and he was very strong and run off, and all of a sudden he'll get out. He did everything possible, to get away with the way he wanted to do things. And the first time I got on him, so I basically jog him to the gate. I'm going to keep this horse as quiet as possible so he doesn't get too strong, and maybe I get along with him. And also, so just to keep it short. So once the gate come out, and I tried to handle him the way I wanted to, and then he got strong with me, and then I kind of let him run for a little bit, then I got him back again. And give and take a little bit with him. We by the time we got to the back stretch, I think we started getting along basically. And then it was easy from there. And then after I rode him the next time, everything I wanted to do with him, he allowed me to do it. So he was one of those horses that was very difficult, but I got along really, really, really well with him, and he definitely was a special horse because he
seemed like
was a
such
difficult horse.
an
He was a difficult horse.
I know Charlie Lopresti loved him and still does. He seemed like such a smart horse too along the way. Winford, I want to give you another chance if you have any other questions to ask Johnny today. Anything else you want to know from the Hall of Famer?
It's kind of a broad question, but is there any moment or any win in your career so far that just stands out above the rest?
Oh my God, there's so many. I'd be, winning the Derby. Obviously, it's probably the most satisfying one, and obviously everybody in the world will know the Derby. Though, it's incredible how many people will ask you, when they know you're a jockey and all this stuff, and people that don't know very much about racing, and the first thing they ask is, have you been in the Derby? And the second question is like, how you won it? So that kind of is put into your brain very, very early in your career, that when people doesn't know very much about racing, the right away, the first question is about that. Have you been Derby? And second one, how you won it? So definitely the Derby. I mean, there's so many winners that you had, and I don't take any winner for granted. I mean, everything from the climate races to the top races and everything. I think winning is the key of everything, and they all give you a satisfying. I don't know how to explain it. To love the game, really. That's just what hooked you. Like you use the word. You got hooked. You get hooked. When you're doing this well, you're riding good horses. You run. It's like this is what it's all about. Winning. And so winning's important. I think all the winners that I have had in my career, I've been very blessed to be in the position. That's what where I am right now from all these horses, all these winners that I've been given the opportunity to have.
And speaking of the Derby, Johnny, I mean, it's only days away. I know you've ridden Reincarnate a few times. He's been on the board, picked up those points. Have you settled on your Derby mount for this year quite yet?
Yeah, I think we're still in Reincarnate, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah. I hope he's doing well. He ran a decent race last time. I think he got pretty tired, but I think he missed a lot of training from all of the rain. In California, though, so miss a couple of days here, miss a couple of days there, and breeze a couple of days here and there. So it was hard. So I think hopefully the weather in California cooperated for the next 3 weeks, and he can train straight to the Derby and do well, though. So I think he's definitely a nice horse, and he has a really good chance.
Well, we wish you the best of luck in the Kentucky Derby this year. Again, Johnny, thank you so much for joining us, for taking the time to speak with us today, and for being our very first Hall of Fame guest on the Railbirds podcast for My Racehorse.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Johnny Velasquez has done so much for not only the media members. I can speak, from our perspective over on FanDuel TV, but also just for his fellow riders. He does a lot with the PDJF. He's constantly volunteering his time, helping with various aftercare causes as well. And Hannah, I know you can echo that. He's just a classy guy and gives back so much to this game that has obviously given him a lot as well.
I completely agree. Couldn't have said it any better myself. Over the years, just with working with My Racehorse and Johnny, especially with the Authentic, he never says no to anything. He's always willing to talk to the owners, meet owners, get to know them, and his passion for the industry is great. So I think it's safe to say our first kind of podcast went great. The owner submissions were great, talking with Winford. Awesome. And just getting kind of like the Derby fever kind of going. I'm now even more excited for the first Saturday in May.
Winford, before we let you go, do you have a Derby horse? Have you settled on a horse you like, or are you still keeping your options open?
Man, this field this year is looking super talented. I don't know if I've settled on one just yet. I'm kind of stuck between Forte and King's Barnes. So I'm really not too sure yet. I'm kind of leaning toward King's Barnes more than Forte, to be honest.
On team Todd Pletcher. He looks pretty stacked as usual coming into the Derby. Winford, thank you so much, not only for taking the time to join us on the podcast today, but just to also be a member of the My Racehorse family and ownership group. We really cherish each and every one of the owners, and just being able to hear a little bit about you guys and to know your story as well. Thanks for the time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So that'll wrap us up today for the very first Railbirds podcast recording. We really enjoyed bringing you a little bit closer, not only to your fellow owners, but also to one of the legends of the game, to jockey Johnny Velasquez. And we want to hear from you in the future too. Let us know if you enjoyed the podcast today. Let us know if you'd like to be a guest in the future, and let us know who you'd like to hear from in terms of other jockeys, other trainers, other owners, personalities of the game. If you are interested in anyone in particular, we definitely want to make this podcast for you, and we want you to have some input and some influence on who we're able to hopefully book. Hannah, thanks. I appreciate it. I will talk to you again very soon.
Yeah, thank you.
That'll wrap it up, everybody. We hope you enjoyed Railbirds today.